So when I was connected with Marshall's group, MG100, the 100 coaches, I realized, okay, the universe is pointing me in this direction. I decided to go to the Georgetown program to get certified as a coach because I believe coaching is a discipline. I don't believe you just wake up one day and say, oh, I've had a lot of experience. Let me be a coach, right?
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Kevin, and today we're joined by a really special guest. Her name's Charlene Wheeless. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I know everybody always says it's good to be here, but it's good to be here.
Yeah, and before we went kind of live, we were just talking about your experience and all that. And I think one of my favorite things is just seeing the origin story of all our guests. So I'm so curious about the lore. I want to start at the beginning. Tell me the moment when you're like, hey, I actually want to not only be a coach, but make this into a business. Tell me how you got started.
Oh, I'm an accidental coach. So I was a hard charging corporate executive. I led corporate affairs and communications for a $40 billion company. I had been doing that for 10 years. In 2016, I was diagnosed with cancer. And then in 2017, I was diagnosed with a different cancer and a more serious cancer. So that journey, which I thought was going to be a 7-month journey, that was in 2018, which turned out to be a multi-year journey. I'm hoping is my last cancer surgery, which is the 10th one, just last week. So it's been a long road. But around 2019, I went back to work, and the company that I worked for, we had 50,000 people. I was an executive. The company was over 100 years old. I was the first woman to hold my job and the first Black woman to hold my job and the first Black executive at that level. So you can imagine how easy that was, she says jokingly. And so when I went back to work, I realized that I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to get up and put on the mask that I had to put on in order to fit into a culture that I didn't fit into naturally. I was just tired of being who everybody wanted me to be. And the one thing that cancer had done for me was it had forced me to really think about who I am and not who everybody wanted me to be, right? But who I am. During that process, I decided to separate from my company, which was very scary because I never envisioned a life of entrepreneurship. That was just, if anybody ever said, hey, do you ever think about becoming an entrepreneur? It was a hard no. That's not what I want to do. But one thing I did want to do was, if I ever had the opportunity, I wanted to write a book about being an only and being othered in the workplace. And I wanted to be able to tell the truth. So I didn't know if I'd ever be able to write that book, because if you're employed by a company, you have an awful lot to lose. Well, I found myself in a situation where I was not employed by a company. I am a woman of faith. I'm a Christian. And so I had asked God, you've taken me through all of this. What is it that I'm supposed to do with this? I have now survived this. What am I supposed to do with it? I woke up one day and I said, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to write a book. I decided in writing the book that I was going to tell the truth, the good, the bad, the ugly. And after the book came out, people started calling me and asking me to speak, if I wanted to speak about the book. And so I did that for a little bit. And then people started asking me if I wanted to coach. And that was an emphatic no. I absolutely did not want to be a coach. The reason for that is because being in the corporate world, and at that time, coaching was not developmental, it was punitive. So everybody that I knew that was going through coaching, including myself, by the way, was because I needed to be fixed, right? I didn't want to be in the business of fixing people, of telling people that there's something wrong with you and you need to learn how to be more homogenous to this culture. So I said, no, I'm sorry, but that's just not something I want to be a part of. Enough people asked me about it I said, let me look into this. And then to make this very long story, at least a little bit shorter, there were a few things that converged. One was I discovered positive psychology, right? Which is the positive side of coaching, which is about taking people's strengths and making them stronger and not trying to take a weakness and make it a strength, right? Because you just can't do that. So I discovered that. Then I also realized, well, if I'm an entrepreneur, then I have control over which assignments I take and which assignments, I don't take. And the third piece is, I don't know if this name means anything to you, but I got a call from Marshall Goldsmith's office.
Oh,
And
I do. I do know this person. Yeah, what got you here won't get you there. Yeah.
exactly. And so the
Uh-huh.
thing that was interesting about that was I probably have 20 copies of that book because at
Mm,
any given time, because as I promoted people, I gave them that book. And I said, here
mm,
is probably the best book I've ever read about going from one level to another level. And so when I was connected with Marshall's group, MG100, the 100 coaches, I realized, okay, the universe is pointing me in this direction. I decided to go to the Georgetown program to get certified as a coach because I believe coaching is a discipline. I don't believe you just wake up one day and say, oh, I've had a lot of experience, let me be a coach, right? So I went through the Georgetown program and then ultimately graduated from that and then went to the International Coaching Federation to become certified as well. So I didn't have a plan to be a coach. It found me more than I found it. So I know that was a
mm.
very long answer to your question, but that's how I got there.
There's a few things that stood out to me. The first thing was like you mentioned coaching as fixing as the old paradigm because obviously if you kept that same belief about coaching, you probably
Mhm.
wouldn't be a coach today. And it's
No.
really interesting to hear the story of how you kind of reframed coaching into a more positive thing. And eventually it became your discipline, which was amazing. But the other
Right.
thing I was very curious about, I didn't want to interrupt you, but
Mhm.
I think during your executive days, when you're doing corporate, you said something interesting. You're kind of battling like who you wanted, someone wanted you to be versus who you were. Can you
Mhm.
paint me like a picture of like those expectations that were put on you back during your corporate days versus like who you actually are and like the difference and the conflict?
Well, sure. For hundreds and hundreds of years, the workplace has been homogenous for the most part. And even today, when you look at the top echelons of most companies, everybody looks the same. Maybe they all went to the same university. That's kind of the culture and the look, etc., that gets rewarded. I don't look like any of that. It's who do they want you to be? It's how do they want you to dress? Right? Know when you're supposed to speak up and not speak up. There are certain things that you can't do. We're not a flashy company, so don't wear jewelry. I think there was a company that I worked for in the early 2000s, as an example, and I was meeting with a young woman, and she had come into my office, and she had on a gray suit, and she had on this beautiful fuchsia blouse. It was just stunning. And so I complimented her on it. And she had on a cute pair of heels, complimented her on what she's wearing. And she says to me, before you came here, I would have never worn this. I was like, well, what do you mean? And she says, I would have never worn color like this and heels because that's just not how women dressed here, right? And so I worked in places where a lot of times the women tried to outmen the men because that was, I've never tried to do that. I have been coached internally at places to don't wear bright clothes, dress down more, and different things like that. And it's like, look, I'm a girl. I'm not trying to be a girl pretending to be a guy.
Yeah.
That's just not who I am. And I remember, and I got it from men and women, right? I remember being on a panel once with a couple of other women leaders who were in their dockers and their polos or anything like that. And if you ever see me in that, I've just given up, okay? Because none of that is in my wardrobe. And I was
Yeah.
on this panel. One of the young women in the audience had asked a question about something, about dress or whatever. One of the women on the panel said, I don't want to be remembered for what I wore. So I don't put a lot of effort into what I'm wearing. I want to be remembered for what I said, right? And so the young woman who asked the question then, of course, looked at me because I was completely decked out. And she's like, Charlene, what do you think? I said, I just want to be remembered. I'll take care of the rest. But if my clothes is what makes them remember me, that's what's going to get me in the room, right?
Mm.
And I'll take care of it from there, you know? So that's what fitting in is about.
And so I'm kind of curious. So you have this experience, right? And
Hmm.
so you start your coaching business. How did you decide who you wanted to help? Like, yeah, I'm very curious about that.
Well, I mostly help everybody. So, but I do have a very soft spot for women leaders and emerging women leaders, and of course for minority women, because I've walked that path, right?
Mm.
And I know what it looks like and what it feels like and what it does to you to wake up every single day thinking that you have to pay attention to every single thing you do so that it doesn't send the wrong message. Let's not forget that it hasn't even been 10 years since it became illegal to fire somebody for their hairstyle. And that was called the Crown Act was passed. And prior to that, if a woman wore an afro and the higher ups didn't deem that as professional, the woman could be fired for that. And there was no law
Wow.
against it. So I have a soft spot for women, especially women leaders who are giving up so much of themselves in order to be successful. I'm not pissing over success. I'm all about be successful. But there's a price to pay. And it's okay to pay that price, but just know that you're doing it, right? And that's the thing. I'm all about choice, right? It's choice, not chance, that changes your life. So
Yeah.
know that you have the choice.
What's something that most people wouldn't really understand, or like, especially us, like I'm a guy, right? And so what's something that most men, I guess, like myself, don't
Mhm.
really kind of see? There's like, I've spoken to a lot of women.
You know, I don't think that men realize that the roles are different for women,
Mm.
right? I really don't. I think that men think, well, gee, if a woman would just be straightforward in the workplace about what she wanted, then everything would be okay. But if women were straightforward, they would be considered demanding. If you speak passionately about something, and God forbid you pound your fist on the table because you're so passionate, well, suddenly you've become the angry black woman, right? And
Mm.
so, and there are other things too. You know, there used to be a time where men didn't want to hire young women because they thought they might have babies. They'd lose momentum, right? And women still lose momentum when they leave the workplace to have children. I don't think that men truly understand that the rules are different. You can mentor someone and say, well, here's how you need to do this, here's how you need to do this. But that doesn't necessarily work for us
Mm.
because there's a different expectation. You've
Yeah.
got to figure out what that is in the organizations that you're in and then make your choice as to whether you're going to accept it or reject it. And know that there will be consequences either way.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I've always been kind of curious. I do have a lot of female friends and they always tell me
Mhm.
their experience and stuff, but it's interesting hearing it from someone I'm just getting to know right now as well.
Mhm.
So I love that. Okay, let's go back to your business for a second. When people are considering working with you, how do they find you? What does your marketing strategy kind of look
Mhm.
like at the moment?
Well, it's, you know, it's multifaceted, right? The
Mhm.
marketing strategy. So, you know, some of it is using LinkedIn to establish your authority. Some of it is using your warm leads and building out from there. I don't advertise at all and I don't cold call. I've just found that over time that takes a lot of work. It's a numbers game. We all know it's a numbers game. Closing a deal, and I don't close them all, but closing a deal is fairly easy for me because by the time we get to the conversation, people know who they're talking to. They either
Mhm.
know me by reputation, they know me personally, or they've been introduced to me. So, do I have a pipeline? Yes. You know, do I have a funnel? I don't know. I don't even know if I've even figured out what a funnel is, but I probably have one. That's just not what I call it. It's outreach. I'm sure you hear this a lot from solopreneurs. It's word of mouth, you know, as well. It's a numbers game.
What's been a challenge for you, either in the past or currently, when it comes to finding clients, I guess?
Probably keeping that steady drumbeat going, you know, like I
Mm.
said, and being a solopreneur, It's, you're either doing the work or you're marketing to sell the work, right? Whether that's your website or however you're doing that, finding that balance between the doing and the selling. And most people that I know, unless you're in sales, you're not particularly good at selling yourself. That's often I would say, a challenge.
And one of the things I just love hearing are the different business models that coaches have, what's working for
Mm-hmm.
them at different stages. I guess what I'm really curious about are what do your current coaching containers look like? So, for example, some people have one on one coaching, some people have group coaching. What do your containers look like?
Yeah, so I offer one-on-one coaching. It's a tiered structure. There's CEO, there's pricing for CEO, for C-suite, and then emerging leader. I also offer group coaching, group sessions. Most of my engagements are 6 months or more. And then I also do what I call leadership journeys. And that's really around workshops, but I don't do it in one sitting. One of my most popular workshops is the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. So instead of doing that in 3 days, I'm going to do that in 3 months. And I'm going to give you what I call booster shots in between, each session. We're going to come up with some agreements. We're going to test those agreements. We're going to move. And the reason I do that is because I've never seen anybody change behavior because of a workshop they sat in for 3 days. Most of us
Oh,
tune out the first 2 hours, actually, and it's like, okay, well, that was nice information to know. Now, what do you do with that? So there are leadership journeys as well. And then I would say probably a fourth tier that I have that is time bound is I have a give back rate for women and people of color, but it is limited to 6 months. And after
yeah.
that, you have to go into one of my regular cost structures.
Oh, it's beautiful. You have your own business, you get to make your own rules, and you get to make the
Mm-hmm.
exceptions that you want. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you feel comfortable sharing this. You don't have to give exact numbers, but I'm curious when you were structuring these things, what sort of pricing models did you use to kind of price these out? Because I hear some people talk about value-based pricing, or like some
Mm-hmm.
people anchor based off their time, and then some other people based off the client, how much
Mm-hmm.
they're making. How did you kind of come up with your pricing structures,
Okay.
I guess?
Yeah, I feel very strongly about price integrity. My prices don't change because of the size of the company. I couldn't keep
Mm,
that straight anyway. Nor am I an hourly based coach. So I am a purely retainer based coach only.
mm,
And I do that for a couple of reasons. One is I do know coaches who will tell me that they have 40 active clients. They talk to them, and they just roll. They stay pretty busy, right? And they charge by the hour, and that's great. I don't ever want more than 10 active clients
mm.
because, one, they're high level. The risks of them making good decisions and bad decisions are really high, and I want them to be able to have access to me when they need it. For an example, I have a CEO client that we always schedule an hour, and our sessions are always at least 3 hours. And I know that, and so I allow time for that. So when I was looking at my pricing structure, I said, okay, there's the coaching, but then there's also a 35-year career and all of the learning that goes with that they're getting as well. So I guess you'd say I'm value priced. And sometimes I take off my coach hat and I put on my consultant hat when they say, well, what would you do? And I'm very clear when they say that. I said, okay, I'm taking off my coaching hat and I'm putting on my consultant hat. And so now let's talk through this. And then I'll say, okay, putting my coaching hat back on. So, but I'm fully aware that when people that I coach are getting my 35 years of experience, right? And
Mm.
25 years of that is as a senior executive in the C suite, that has value.
You said something really interesting, the hats.
Mhm.
How do you differentiate the consulting like mode versus like coaching mode?
Just the way I said it has a lot to do with what the client's needs are. Because my
Mm,
job as a coach is to help the client get to the answer on their own, is to ask the right questions and the probing questions so that they can get to it on their own. The reality is that when you're coaching the C-suite and you're coaching a CEO, you are not only are you a mirror to them, you are also a sounding board for them. You're an advisor to them. So they don't want you to just kind of parrot back as a coach. They want to know, have you seen this situation before? And how did you do it? Or after I've laid this out for you, what do you think? And all of my clients know once we get in that mode of what do you think? How do you think I should handle this, etc., then I make it very clear we're going into consulting and advising. And so here's what I think. I don't ever lead them down a path of me telling them what they need to do. It's more
Makes
leading them
sense.
down a path of saying, you've explained this to me. Here's another way that I'm hearing it. Maybe they have someone that they think is a problem employee, and I'll say, over the last 3 months, whenever this person's name has come up, off the top of your head can tell me everything wrong that this person does. Have you considered that you might have a confirmation bias going? And just for a moment, flip that around and assume that you don't have a confirmation bias. And let's see what the next couple of weeks look like, right? So, it really just depends on, I'm here to meet the needs of the client. And, for me, I say coaching is an avocation and an occupation. So, but I am very much here to meet the needs of the client and meet the client where they are. And sometimes clients drop things on me that's a problem that, I need to do some work on to solve. I have one of those going right now. That's just how it is. But I
Yeah.
don't ever market myself as a consultant. I do not.
Mm. It's just like tool in your toolbox or a skill set you can
Yeah,
lean
it's a
upon if needed.
bonus that you get.
Yeah. I do want to go back to your own ambitions because
Mhm.
obviously I think you said you've been in kind of coaching for about 4 to 5 years. I guess like where do you want your coaching business to take you in the next few years? Do you have any secret dreams, big ambitions no one knows about? I'm very curious on that end.
Yeah, I want to have $1 million coaching business, but I still want it to be me.
As you're trying to get to the $1 million coaching business, are you running into any challenges or are there any challenges that you're noticing?
Well, I think the biggest challenge, of course, is the cycle of client. While I do know people who have been a coach to, an executive for 10 years, it's like, yeah, that person's been my coach for 10 years. That's fantastic, but I'm not looking to create a codependent relationship. So every year I talk to my client about whether or not we should continue this. I know other coaches that, don't ever bring it up because they're just hoping the person doesn't cancel, but that's not me. It's always the challenge of you lose a client, you need to get a new client. It's that constant thing. It's hard
Mm,
to build a sustainable business when you don't necessarily know where your next client is coming from. Because I haven't reached my limit right now, by the way, but
mhm.
because I do limit how many coaching clients I take on, I will create a waiting list. But more than
Mm,
likely, people will find a coach within that time, right? Before my
I
waiting
see.
list opens up. Because I can't tell somebody that, oh, my waiting list is going to open up in 2 months. It could be a year. It's all a matter of how people rotate out. Like I said, right now, that's not a problem because I'm probably 5 away from the 10 that I'd like to keep rolling.
I
But
see.
I'm not looking for more than 10 coaching clients.
How did you come up with 10? Is it just through experience and just seeing how you feel, or like right from the beginning, you kind of knew 10 is like the max I could do?
It's a couple of things. One is looking at it from a financial perspective. I'm not trying to build a multi-million dollar business. I need money, of course, but it's not about the money, it's about the impact for me. My clients live in my head rent free. Okay, so if I have a client that has a problem, I am thinking about that problem all the time. I'm looking for hints in the universe when I see something that says, oh my goodness, I think that would help this client, or that I'm always on the lookout. And so, what I've discovered about myself is that I can do that for 10 people who have serious problems. I can't do that for 20 people. And one of the things that I also offer with my coaching is I offer rapid coaching sessions. So I tell people, if something comes up, you've got a big meeting to go into, whatever, and you're not prepared, call me. I'm going to be your hype squad, right? Just give me a call
Mm,
before you go in. I'm going to give you a couple of reminders and I'm going to be your hype squad. Or
mm,
maybe something just happened and you're just pissed off or whatever and you need to vent. Call me or text me. If I'm available, I'm going to be there for you. And I can be there for 10 people. I can't be there for 20 people. It's all a matter of how much can I be there for you.
One of the things I like to do with this podcast, I like to play a little game.
Okay.
It's called Good Investment, Bad Investment. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
so curious about the best thing you spent your money on for your coaching business and the worst thing. And by worst thing, there's always a silver lining with them. But
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think about an investment that you wish you got your money back. I think that's the
Okay.
ones we should look at it.
Best investment was in going through the Georgetown program and also in hiring a virtual assistant. Best investment by far.
What was so great about the virtual assistant before we move on?
The virtual assistant,
Yeah.
well, she takes care of so much for me, right? She takes
Mm,
care of, if I'm sending out bulk emails, but I still insist they come out from my email address, she does those. So she helps with a lot of my marketing as well as, my scheduling, things like that, taking some of the administrivia out of it. She takes care
mm.
of. So by far, great investment. My worst investment is that I'd spent a good amount of money on with different companies on $1 million consulting, how to build a coaching business, how to do business development, and everybody has their own systems and how to do it. And what I've learned, one, was they were expensive because they promised the delivery, right? So you figure, oh, they're just going to pay for themselves, which never happens. What I found is that getting comfortable with business development is a very personal thing, right? Some people can cold call all day long and it doesn't bother them. You can't just take someone's system and make it your system unless it's a kind of system that really works for you, right? And so I would say I've probably been through maybe 3 different, maybe even 4 different, because I also have a speaking business as well,
Ah, okay.
types of business development learnings that I think really were all kind of a waste of time.
Very valuable insight there. And a
Yeah.
lot of those books that you talked about and all that,
Hmm.
I've also gone through it and I've had
Right.
very similar experiences with you.
Yeah. And
Okay.
the thing is I didn't do the book. I did the
Yeah. You
consulting
bought the
piece.
program. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's somebody that actually takes you through it. I would love to have all that money back.
Thank you for sharing that experience with me. I
Hmm.
think people who are listening to this will really relate to it. And I
Hmm.
think that's really sound wisdom. Last wisdom question.
Hmm.
Knock on wood, I hope this doesn't happen to you at all, but let's say you lost your business. You had
Hmm.
to start over again tomorrow with 0 followers, 0 clients, and none of the connections that you have right now. But you do have all the wisdom that you've gained over these last few years. And
Okay.
so my question to you is like if you had to rebuild your practice again, what would you do in your first 90 days?
I probably put together a business plan. I didn't do that initially, and I still haven't done it, quite frankly. And so I think I would be more intentional because I've done a lot of trial and error, fail fast, move on. And so I might be a bit more intentional about my business and whether I wanted to, do I still want to work with high powered CEOs or do I want to work with, people who are self-pay? Very few of my clients are self-pay. It's all through
Mm.
corporations.
I think you are the first person who's ever suggested kind of this like thinking time and just stopping before. Most people they'd be like, "Hey, I'll go network immediately." But I like your approach of just like stopping and just thinking and being more intentional about like, what am I
Right.
actually doing here? Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, it's a luxury to be able to do that, right? I'm not worried about paying my mortgage. It's not a food, water decision for me. If
Yeah.
it was just me supporting myself only, then I might have to jump right back into something,
Mm.
no, I can tell you one thing is I'd be scared shitless. It's not lost on me. I'm a cancer survivor. I am a minority woman. I am 61 years old. It'd be pretty hard to go out and find a job, one that paid me what I would be looking for. So yeah, I'd be scared shitless about went away tomorrow.
What the heck? You're 61? I'm so
I,
blown away.
oh,
That is
yes, I am.
crazy.
Yes, I am
Oh my
61 years
God.
old. Hmm.
Well, I'm sure you get that a lot, but
I
wow,
do.
I'm
I
really
do. But it's
I'm
okay. I can never hear it too much.
and now it's on recording, so you can watch that over
Right,
and over
exactly.
again.
I'll just put it on loop. Right.
Charlene, how do people find you and connect with you?
A lot of people connect with me on LinkedIn, which is great. I'd rather receive an email, and my email address is charlene@charlenewheeless.com, and my website, which is also charlenewheeless.com.
Charlene, definitely, I really appreciate our conversation, the
Of
stories
course.
that you shared, and
Mhm.
I find it really interesting, like your corporate background and like the experiences you went through and how it
Mhm.
applies to your coaching business today. And you were very, very generous with like helping me understand your coaching models, but probably have helped other coaches
Mhm.
with their pricing models as well. So I just really want to thank you for that. Thank you
Of
so much
course.
for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.